Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Week 6 edition of the JAKIB Postgame Show. The Eagles get the win, 20-16. It was ugly. It was hard fought. At some times, it was disappointing and pissed you off a little bit. But the Eagles come out with the win. Big Sills, they moved to 3-2 on the year, closed out by a big catch by A.J. Brown. My question for everybody checking into the show: did the Philadelphia Eagles win this football game, or did the Cleveland Browns just lose this game flat out? Big Sills, welcome to the show. That's Dan Sileo. I'm Xander Krause. We'll be joined by John McMullen later on in the show. He's down at the Lincoln Financial Field doing the interviews and everything, and then he'll join us. Big Sills, your first reaction to the Philadelphia Eagles win today?
Where's this big, high-powered Eagle offense of yours? Where is it? I mean, it's just not a consistent offense yet. By the way, you had all your superstars. That football team might easily be, okay, the worst offensive football team in the league, the Cleveland Browns. They just might be the worst. By the way, I didn't think the defense played that poorly. I actually think Jaylen played well. But when you watch that football team, if you're going to sit here and go like this, today on October 13th and go, that's a high-powered Super Bowl contending team, you got another thing coming. By the way, again, I thought they did a nice job on a football team that really has nothing to offer right now. The Cleveland Browns look terrible. I'll tell you something else that you come away with this. When you get into those games that are going to be games that matter, and you don't have Jordan Mailata or a Dallas Goedert, and now you have those significant injuries, you're going to, when you run into a good football team, Cleveland's not a good football team. Now, look, it's a win. Any win in the NFL is a great win, okay? But when you're trying to find out where you are, hey, how about this, Xander? Ask yourselves this question. How do you feel coming out of the bye with that performance? How do you feel?
Yeah,
I mean,
you don't feel
satisfied?
You don't feel inspired, Sills. I'll tell you that much. But here's what I will say, right? And I said at halftime that this
I'm not impressed with them. I'm not impressed with them.
But I wasn't over the top in that this team sucks. I thought, look, sometimes in the NFL, Sills, you have to win in different types of ways. I thought they came out, they handled business. At times, I thought they played down to their competition, the Browns. But remember, Sills, that Browns defense isn't that bad.
Oh, no,
that's a pretty good defensive ball. I mean, Jaylen Herz finished 16-25, 264 and 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, 6 receptions, 117 yards. By the way, a clean game, no turnovers for the quarterback. That's a big check in the box. I thought there was some good to take from this game.
Hey, the lack of turnovers is what won that. One or two turnovers, you're going to lose that ball game. And he did not. Played a clean game. I thought there were a little bit too many 3-and-outs, especially to start the second half. There was some stumbling around a little bit. The defense didn't play poorly. But again, Xander, remember what we said? This was going to be an exercise in what side of the football was going to be worse. What won that game, in my opinion, was the fact that you didn't have any turnovers and the Eagle defense played well. The Eagle defense played well. I mean, you hold the football team to how many? What was the total yards that they ended up holding?
They had 16 points, but remember, 7 of those points came on the blocked field goal returned by Rodney McLeod. So Deshaun Watson was 16-23 today for 168 yards. The total yards I could get you, but total yards, they had 244 yards.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but that Browns offense sucks. That's what I knew was going to happen.
I get that. And that is, like you said, that's completely the issue, that when you're looking at an underwhelming offensive football team, hey, man, Deshaun Watson started getting it going a little bit in the second half, but he's completely incompetent on moving.
He's terrible, man. I don't know what happened to that guy.
I'm just saying, if you would have played, in my opinion, against a competent quarterback in this game, you'd have been beat by 10 points.
Yeah.
Okay? You'd have been beat by 10 points. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. Look, I think that defense, like we said, I think that defense is sensational. I do. I'm talking the Browns.
Yeah.
I think the Browns.
I mean, they were missing some guys, but they still have a good defense out there. Rodney McLeod, by the way, he's impressive. For his
Absolutely.
age. Yeah.
By the way, Myles Garrett too, man.
Oh my goodness.
What a freakazoid athlete he is out there. Hey, and by the way, the best player on the football field was indeed A.J. Brown. I mean, he was the best football player. They had no
That was a
answer.
risky play at the end there. And now it worked out. But think about it.
did.
Think about the conversation we had earlier in the year about stopping the clock, about going against the
Yep.
clock. If he dropped that pass, the Browns would have had a chance to get the ball back and would not have had to burn their last time out. That was a risky play there to go to A.J. Brown. He made a great catch. By the way, I want to welcome everybody in to the JAKIB postgame show. Appreciate all of you guys being here. One viewer, and we'll get to all the super chats later on the show, but one viewer deserves right up front Big Sills, and that's Darrell Ray, who dropped a $100 super chat in the pregame show as a stroke of confidence. He checks in with a 50 and says, "I told you," followed up by a 20, followed up by a 10. Jarrell is firing on all cylinders. He said, "Sills, you said it yourself. It's going to take well into the season. Only week 6 and the defense played good." And then he said, "I'm going to the gym. I'm not impressed either, but Sills, when you're trying to build something, it takes time." How you doing, Jarrell? Thank you, brother. Appreciate your support.
I do have a bitch on Sirianni. Why are you chirping at the fans?
Yeah.
Why are you
He's a child, Sills. We know this.
Why are you hollering at the fans on the sidelines when that has absolutely no place on the sidelines? You're doing that against the Philadelphia Eagle fans when they're just pissed off because they want to see clean football. You're chirping back at them. Bro, come on. Fucking grow up, guy. Where are you here, man? He's chirping at the Eagle fans on the sidelines because they were booing the way that they came out in the second half. Dude, honest to God, that guy is absolutely unbecoming of a head football coach.
He's very Harry High School. He's very immature, and you can see it. I mean, look, sometimes the team comes out and you can see his personality seeping through some of the team. At times today, Sills, I mentioned this earlier, at times I thought the team played down to their competition, which you never want to happen. That Browns offense is just, it's so bad. It's almost unbelievable to watch when you think about how good Deshaun Watson was at one point in his career and where he's come. So I would say that would be my one knock. The team played down the competition at some point today, but look, they did ice it out. I thought that they played well offensively, 372 total yards, 256 through the air, 116 rushing yards. Overall, I thought the Eagles had a pretty good game, but your thoughts on them playing down the competition?
Well, again, the Browns suck. They're terrible. That's the worst team, one of the worst teams in the AFC, if not the NFL. And like you said, you got out of it. I said, take the points and take the Browns. And that's exactly what this thing turned out to be. It turned out to be what I said, a fourth quarter football game. Why? Well, because the Eagles allowed teams to stick in there because they can't have any kind of continuity or any kind of consistency when it comes to putting points on the board. I mean, dude, you were dominating in that football game. Where is your red zone offense? I mean, you have absolutely no red zone offense. And they have such a propensity to get away from Barkley in stretches of the football game. And you saw that again a little bit by getting pass happy. Then you started with the 3 and outs again. I mean, I got to say too, Xander, last couple of weeks, special teams has turned out to be an absolute issue. And I will agree. I see somebody barking in here about it. Dude, Nakobe Dean is awful. He is awful. He can't cover and he cannot tackle. And Xander, I thought the backup defensive tackles played better than the starters at times. I mean, I saw Jalen Carter show up, but I saw a little bit of Jordan Davis, but I saw Booker and the other kids showing up more. Those guys looked like they were more productive than what we were seeing with the other guys.
More with Jomo Sills. He was everywhere today.
He was absolutely fabulous. And especially when you lost your starting center and they had to play musical chairs again when it came to the offensive line for the Browns. Dude, the Browns have nothing offensively to offer. There's a couple good players, but there's a lack of discipline on that side of the ball. And I can't believe the Eagles just eked this game out because that's a football team they should have beat by 14 points.
Yeah, no doubt. And why do you think they didn't do that? Where would you put that on that they didn't come out there?
Just consistency. I mean, it's some of the play calling, some of the situational play calling, some of the lack thereof on the other side of the ball, because quite frankly, you started the program out and you started it out right. Did the Browns just not play well enough to win because they had the game in their hand? And did the Eagles just allow them to kind of hang around? They did. You know why? Because the Eagles, Xander, had too many holes on their football team. You got all your stars back. And how do you only win by that amount of points when you put up the yards once again with your primary targets? Here, let's look at it again like last year. Dude, Devonte Smith and AJ played great, but you barely won the football game. When you get into a championship setting, Xander, you're not winning that game against how about this? If Cousins is the quarterback on that other side, are you beating him?
That's a different ball game if that's their quarterback.
How about this? When you got Lamar Jackson, how about if that's Dak on the other side? If that's Dak, you're not winning
You're not winning that game.
You're not.
Deshaun Watson isn't getting the ball out to his targets quick enough. That Dak Prescott and those guys get the ball out to their targets. If one of those guys was their quarterback, that's a different story. Deshaun Watson.
By the way, Watson started getting the ball out quicker, and that was one of the reasons why he started to have higher completion percentage in the second half.
They were driving at the end of the game. They finally got into the red zone, the first red zone appearance of any team in the whole game, and then they choke it with their own penalties, and they have to settle for a field goal. I mean, that's why I said Cleveland shot themselves in the foot so many times in that game. It was like a gift for the Eagles.
And how about this? Once again, slow starts for the offense. No points in the first quarter again. First time in franchise history that you don't score any points in the first quarter. I mean, Xander, again, these fast starts are just not – that's a team. Remember, if you want to go back and you want to lean on 22, they got fast starts and they jumped out on people. This football team doesn't do that, man. They're not a consistent offensively run football team. It's play calling, it's quarterback, it's performance. I think it's all of it. That team is just – wait, what's the identity, do you think, after that game of that football team? What would you say? I don't know what it is. Can you tell me what you think it is?
Identity is definitely still lacking with the team. I mean, the identity offensively is A.J. Brown. I mean, still, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know if Jaylen thought he was open. I think he just saw single coverage and decided to throw it up. Early in the game, I'm like, he's started 0 for 5 in the game. By the way, I thought Jaylen had a nice game today.
I know.
He started 0 for 5.
I thought his run.
And then he totally, rebounded. I don't know. I forget what I said.
I think his running. I think he was impressive with his running. I was impressed with his running and some of the throws he had in the football game.
Listen, he started 0 for 5 and he ended 16 of 25. So he went 16 of 20 for 264 and 2 touchdowns after that 0 and 5 start once they kind of settled in. So I'd like to see Kellen Moore give him a better game plan that allows him to work into the game. So it's like, why is your first throw 25 yards up the sideline? Why can't I get a mesh route, a crossing route? Make it easier on the quarterback. Right now, I was watching the game with my family, and my pops is like, is this Jaylen checking in some of these plays? Because you can see him check into certain plays at the line of scrimmage. I have to wonder if it's on him a little bit there, but overall, I just like to see him. I'd like to see them work him into the game in a more conducive way.
He had 300 yards almost in total offense in the game and 2 touchdowns. And like you said, no turnovers. This has got to be one of the first games in a bit now that he hasn't had any turnovers here. And what was the one thing that we wanted? We wanted a clean football game. We said if they get a clean football game, they should probably win this thing pretty handily. Well, they didn't win it handily. They didn't win it handily because, again, the quarterback on the other side of the football, I don't know if the Philadelphia Eagle defense played well or it was just that it had an inept offense with the Cleveland Browns or both. I don't know. I just know this. They had barely any running attack. But what really shocked me too, Xander, they didn't even have Chubb, and they still had 100 yards rushing in the ball game on 25 carries. I mean, you still with guys who were second team guys, they still had 4 yards a carry. They still struggle right now, in my opinion, that Eagle defense on playing the run. And it was evident in the game. And that's what kept many of the drives going.
Yeah, by the way, I saw that clip now floating around social media of Nick Sirianni doing to the fans. I mean, it's just immature.
Why feel that?
Yeah, it's childish is what it is, especially your own home fans. Let me get
this right about the freaking Eagles. They give me some sort of coach speech like he's Bill Belichick and he's Vince Lombardi, and then they turn around and that's going to be on display there that coach looks like he's Harry High School. Come on, man. That is not becoming of an NFL. He's going to get annihilated for that publicly and nationally because of his infantile. We now have this, Xander, Arizona, Indianapolis, Kansas City, now in your own building. This guy's a child, dude. And again, it's unbecoming of a head coach. It's actually embarrassing.
Well, it's also bad leadership because you just pointed it out, right? Your team gets back on track after a bye week, gets a win. Now, instead of everybody analyzing the game or talking about the play, what's everybody going to be talking about all week? They're going to be talking about Nick Sirianni mouthing off to the fans and getting his say. They're going to ask him about it at the press conference. It's foolish of Nick Sirianni to go down that route. But anyway, I digress.
But by the way, Xander, this is going to overtake the game and the win.
Yeah, well, that's next.
This is going to be a front line. You watch, Xander, because everyone, John Clark, everybody now is posting this thing here. This is going to overcome it. The haircut, the screaming at the fans, all of it, and plus the stuttering on the offense. Dude, seriously, this was not a good day. It was a good day for Hertz. I think it was a good day for Josh Sweat. I thought Josh played pretty damn good today,
5 sacks for the defensive. 5 sacks for the defense.
He was good today, man. Josh Sweat was good up front. I was impressed with him.
So there's one guy, I'm going to point out one guy, the guy who stood out to me the most today. The biggest positive I'm taking from this game today. Cooper DeJean looked like he belonged on the football field. He made great plays. He was great on the blitzes. He was good in coverage. A massive upgrade from Avonte Maddox. He looked like he belonged today. What'd you see from Cooper?
And he ran to the ball and he ran through the ball carrier. I mean, it looks like he has a great target and he understands angles and everything. And I'll tell you what, Xander, he's further along than I thought he would be, having missed all the training camp. So they must have done something with him during the bye week. But again, Xander, let's do this here. And I agree with you 100%. That's a good move into putting him in there. But let's see him against a competent offensive passing attack as well. But do you think that they fixed any of their issues during the bye week after that performance?
See, the tough part for me
Maybe
about
cleaning up the turnovers probably was the number one thing, right?
Well, that's a big fix.
It is.
Now, look,
it is.
I'm not going to overreact to that either. I need to see multiple games of Jaylen Herz stringing together consistently good decision football games, turnover-free football games, clean operation football games. So it's a good start in the right direction, and I do think it's a big fix. But my biggest concern coming out of this game would be, how does this team fare versus a playoff opponent? The Browns are not a playoff.
You get beat with that performance today.
I agree. And that's my fear, is that are we buying into hype on a team that beat up on a bad opponent, and they didn't really beat up on them too much.
No.
You know, if we go up against one of the better teams in the league, as you pointed out, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, you know, how does it fare for us? I don't think it does. I don't think it's well, but I don't know. You tell me.
I'll tell you what, man. Again, first and foremost, let's do the two positives. He didn't turn the ball over and you won. Okay? I mean it. Xander, that outweighs a lot of other stuff. Okay? I mean, they just looked rusty coming out of the bye. They did not look prepared. It was just rusty. I thought they started getting it going a little more in the second half. There was a tad bit more consistency, but then the situational play calling got away from Barkley. You know, it looked like to me, I don't know how you saw this, but from about the middle of the late second quarter to like the middle of the third, they kind of got away from Barkley. Then they kind of went back to him a little bit. There's not really a good ebb and flow when it comes to throwing the ball and running the ball. There's no doubt they want to get the football into the hands of the receivers. By the way, I thought Grant Calcaterra had a good receiving game. I mean, I thought for the times that he was in there, he stepped in.
Today.
I mean, dude, for the backup tight end to give you some time, that's pretty good in quality yards. And I will say this finally about Dallas Goedert. I'm over it. Yeah. I know he's a good player. Every single freaking year, we're going to be looking at multiple weeks with him being out with this hamstring now. Come on, Xander. And I get it. Some are going to go like this. Well, they're just freak accidents. 5 years in a row?
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years in a row. How can you build a game plan around a guy who's not going to be on the field? I mean, Calcaterra can't block to save his life, but he was effective in what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, he had the second most yards today. He had 66 yards on 4 catches, an average of 16.5 for Calcaterra today. Devonte Smith had 3 catches, 64 yards, an average of 21.3, and obviously the touchdown. And then A.J. Brown went over 100 with that big catch at the end. He had 6 catches, 117 yards, 19.5 average with a touchdown. So pretty good day for them. I'll say this, and we're going to go positive in a second, and I'm going to ask you about the 2 receivers coming back and how big that is for this team. This was Saquon Barkley's worst day as a Philadelphia Eagle by far, and it's not just about the yards. He had 18 carries, 47 yards, 2.6 average. He also missed the key block. He had a brutal run where he ran out of bounds before the halftime, which led to the blocked field goal. I thought Saquon Barkley wasn't himself today. He didn't look good out there. Your thoughts on Saquon today?
Remember what I said to you in the pregame and on Friday? I said, now that you're getting these 2 guys back, don't you think they have an issue on how to be able to use all their talented players they have in the offensive huddle? Now, I'm going to say this to you. I don't think that's Jaylen Herz. I think that's Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore struggles at trying to find the ball and spreading the football around on getting the ball into the hands of all the playmakers that they have on the team. You know, I mean, Xander, you can have design plays to go to one guy. You don't have to be a progression reader to go, let's throw it to Goddard on the numbers. Let's throw it to Devontae. Let's throw it to AJ. Let's get Barkley more involved in this thing here. I think Kellen Moore is struggling at putting all these pieces together with the quarterback. I think it's more on Kellen Moore and his play calling and his situational play calling. Now, ask yourself this, is Nick involved in that? Okay, is there too much a collaborative issue there on what type of plays they want to run in certain game situations when you're on the field? 1st and 10 on your own 25. Is that a collaborative thing like he says? Or is that Kellen Moore making the calls himself? Because you said it too. You know what's funny? You said, for the first time, I agree with you on this thing here about Jaylen. Jaylen was changing plays out there. And you saw him audibling into other plays and audibling out of plays. And I thought that may have been a little bit of the consistency issues out there as well.
A couple other takeaways I had on this game, getting Big Sills' reaction. We'll be joined on the JAKIB postgame show by John McMullen. Later on, he's down at Lincoln Financial Field doing the press conferences. I'm curious to hear what Nick has to say after that joke of a move to kind of mock the Philadelphia fans, which, by the way, is not going to go over well in this city. It was just a dumb move there by Nick. Very immature guy.
By the way, that's all people are talking about now on social media.
Yeah, I see it all over social media. A couple other
what a clown show he is.
Yeah, a couple other takeaways. Bryce Huff. You know what? I know it's not a huge game. You need more out of a $17 million player, but here's what I saw today. You lined him up in the 4-point stance, and he immediately looked better, even with no production numbers, right? He got off the ball way quicker. He was getting around that edge. He made Deshaun Watson step up in the pocket several times. I thought that was positive. He did have 2 tackles and a half a sack. I thought that was somewhat encouraging that not only did he show some signs of life, but the coaching staff showed that they're going to look at how to use him better, and they may have self-scouted over the week, over the bye week, and they made a good correction there. What did you see from Bryce Huff today?
Better. Okay, like you said.
Yeah,
better.
Not good, but better.
Better. And again, a sign of life. Whereas in the previous games, there was no sign of life. The 4 games, I saw snaps of 35 snaps with no numbers. And so, again, a sign of life. But remember, Xander, what makes Myles Garrett sensational is that he's consistently doing that, what he does. And I'm not saying to you that Bryce Huff is going to be Myles Garrett.
He's
but
not.
These really great football players, one thing Hassan Reddick gave you constant pressure when used correctly. This is the first step. Again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to fall into a situation like you did after New Orleans with the 2 defensive tackles and start to think that everything is going to be copacetic and all good with Bryce Huff. You need to see at least 3 games where he's putting up. How about this? What's sad about what you're saying is that it's an okay game, but that's a high water mark. That's got to be his low water mark. You know what I mean? That's how you build on something like this.
I did think it was positive, though, the way they used him, right? Like you just laid it out. This has to be his low. Well, maybe it is his new low if they continue to put him in that 4-point stance, pin his ears back, and let him go. He's not the 3-down guy. He's not going to be that guy. I thought that was good to see that Vic lined him up that way this week.
Well, obviously, there had been some talk about how they were going to try to get him in a position to be successful, whether he felt more comfortable in a 4-point, 3-point, standing up in a 2-point. I'll tell you what, him in a 4-point, no question about it. Like you said, he looked way better coming off that 4-point stance than he did coming out of the 2-point stance. And that's something also that he did when they were in New York. I wonder if somebody may have gone back and watched some tape on him, because when you go back and watch him, when he was in New York, he came out of that 4-point.
Good game for him today. So a couple other takeaways, and I got to do it, is injuries. I mean, I don't know how serious any of them are, but we're talking about a game.
Concerns me the most.
The Mulata one, you said?
The Mulata one concerns me the most.
That was a hamstring. He left with a hamstring. Goddard a hamstring as well, and Slay left as well and did not finish this game. That's 3 key guys that you might be. I don't know how long. Look, we don't have the injury update yet. We're probably not going to get that till later in the week, but 3 key guys didn't finish this game. You don't want that injury bug to start creeping right back in on this football team. That's a concern coming out of this game.
Let me ask you something here. Maybe I'm just reading more into it. A.J. Brown hamstring, Goddard hamstring, now Mulata hamstring. I mean, all these guys who didn't play in preseason football, and they kept saying how much they practiced. I mean, hamstring injuries is a fatigue injury.
Right.
I mean, did you work them too hard? Not hard enough. But for everyone to have the same injury like that, this is a conditioning issue to me. I mean, A.J. Brown, hamstring, right? Goddard hamstring, Mulata hamstring. You're seeing a lot of that injury on that team. That's a conditioning issue.
I don't think it's from working too hard.
No, it's not. It's not working hard enough. I mean, that to me is a conditioning thing.
Yeah,
when
I don't
you're
know where
getting multiple players with the same thing, that's not just a coincidence.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know where do you pinpoint that? Just simply not enough practice.
Being in shape.
Right. Just
not being in shape. I mean, that's an organizational thing, not being in shape. I don't know. I mean, it's one thing to have a knee injury, Xander. I thought when I heard Goddard went out with a hamstring, I was like, Jesus. And then when I heard Mulata went out with one, I'm going like, are these guys in shape? Dude, conditioning is an issue here with this team.
Yep. Couple last things, and these are more concerns for me coming out of this game, right? And they mostly lie on the defensive side of the ball. Missed tackles is still going to be an issue when you play versus a better team that's more competent offensively, and run defense. I mean, you named it. They didn't even have their running backs out there. They lost the guy. I forget the guy's name that started the game in place of Nick Chubb.
Like Ford?
He didn't even finish the game. They come out and they still kind of run all over us a little bit at times. I thought the run fits were an issue today again. And the missed tackles, when you go against better teams, they're going to bite you in the ass. And it didn't today, but that's a concern for me in the future. What'd you see
who's
from that?
Pierre Strong? I mean, who's Pierre Strong? Honestly, you think when Derrick Henry runs on you, when you play the Ravens and you play Lamar, they're going to go for 400 yards rushing on you if you don't correct this right. I thought he went and did a lot of things, though, that kind of didn't surprise me. You notice they went to 5 front. They went to 4 front. They did a lot more in the odd front stuff in this game. But again, too, Xander, that's not an impressive win, okay? Coming out of a bye, you look like that against the shitty Browns? Bro, really? You limped around and had a 4-point win versus the Browns. I mean, weren't you thinking more coming out of this thing here?
Yeah,
I mean
get Vegas
this.
was
How many points have you scored in the last 3 games offensively? I mean, what, 18, the Buck game, and now 20? Where's this high-powered offense? You had all your stars back. Where is your high-powered offense?
You had 15 versus Saints, 16 versus the Bucks is 31 and 20 today. You're at 51 points in 3 games.
Are you surprised it was this close?
I'm not. You know what? I'm not. I think, but I do think there was a couple things that happened in this game that turned out a lot. Right? That blocked field goal. I mean, we're looking at 16. The Browns had 7 points from that. Like they had 9 points
They're
in
not
the
good.
entire game. They're not good at all. But I think that makes the game a lot closer right there. So no, I can't say I'm surprised this was close. No, this is who the Eagles have been this year.
Dude, I look at the Browns and they offer nothing. They offer nothing offensively. I mean, nothing. There's nothing that makes me concerned about. Did I think Deshaun Watson was going to win this game? Can I tell you the only way that I thought that the Browns were going to win this game is if Hurts turned the ball over late in the ball game and it was going to be a short field and they were going to go in and win. Did I think that Deshaun Watson was going to drive the team 90 yards on a game-winning drive? Absolutely not. That guy does not have that in him, and that offense doesn't have the personnel to get that done. I did not think that. I guarantee you 90% of the people in here thought this. The Browns aren't going to beat them. The only way the Browns win is if Jaylen turns the ball over on the other side of the 50. That's it. I never thought it. So for me, I thought, hey, I'm surprised the game was this close. Because when you look at the Browns, did anything on that football team outside of their defense now? Their defense is good. But did they threaten you in any way where you thought they were going to lose, except for the fact that you thought that the Eagles, if anything, were going to give that game away? You thought the Eagles were going to give that game away.
It was much more of that than it was the Browns were going to steal it away. I mean, like I said at the open, the Browns kind of shot themselves in the foot several times. I mean, they did drive toward the end of the game with a chance to tie it, got in the red zone, and then they just made a litany of mistakes that drove them out and they kicked a field goal.
Hey, Sue brings up a great point. You think that team looks like a playoff team?
No, they don't. And if they are a playoff team, they don't look like a playoff team that's ready to compete with the big guns in the league. That's for damn sure. Not today, they didn't.
I have to think it's because everyone's back and it's almost like training camp again. You know what I mean? AJ's been out a month, but again, AJ looked great. I mean, Xander, I think when AJ comes back, I think it affects the rest of the team. I do. I think it affects the rest of the players on the team there, man, because
in what way?
In the fact that you have primary target throwing again. Hey, dude, I was so glad to see Dotson in the fourth make some catches because you know what that did as a coordinator? You've got to go like this. Holy shit, this guy just made 3 catches. It's not just Devonte Smith and A.J. Brown. That was the first time I went, wow, somebody else other than the big two. When you play against a better group of football players and a better team and a better quarterback, you can't put a performance like that up there or you're going to get beat.
Yep, no doubt going in. Sills, real quick, let's talk about those 2 receivers, A.J. Brown, Devonte Smith return. Obviously, it's always big when you get those 2 guys back. But I think A.J. bailed out a bad play call there at the end of the game. I know everybody was excited about the catch, and by the way, thanks everybody in the chat. Hit that like button if you're enjoying the show. If you're new here to JAKIB, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you being here. Consider becoming a member to support us. All super chats will be read, and we're going to do them a little earlier today. So we'll get to all the super chats today. We've got a bunch of them coming in. So if you guys want us to read one of your questions, please leave us in a super chat, and we will get to that in a couple minutes. But Sills, your thoughts on A.J. Brown and Devonte Smith returning today?
Absolutely fantastic stuff there with A.J. Brown. Had 9 targets in the game. I believe he had, if I'm not mistaken, I think he had 6 catches for 116, had a touchdown, had a big 40-yarder. I thought he was just absolutely sensational. Like I said, Grant Calcaterra had 4 targets, 4 catches for just under 70 yards himself. Devontae, I mean, dude, you're looking at a guy here. I mean, what do you average? Like around 19 yards a catch here when you're talking? I mean, what do you have? Three catches, 64 yards, had a touchdown himself, had 4 targets. But again, the bulk of the targets went to the top 2 guys. There were 13 targets, and the rest of them were like 2, 3s, and 4s. I thought Jaylen started pretty slow. But again, AJ bailed a lot of people out there today. He is so dynamic when he gets the ball in his hand in an open space. He's a tough cover to get down on the ground. Some of those catches he made over his shoulder, too. He's just stronger than you, man. Yep. I mean, he takes the ball out of so many people's hands. I mean, I'll say this to you. He must save Jaylen Herz on turnovers in a game at least twice a game where it's a bad throw. And I thought Hertz had a ton of bad throws in this game.
Yeah, well,
Overthrows
that
and
touchdown throw
misses.
to AJ, that was short.
No, I'm talking about overthrows and misses.
Yeah, well, I'm saying even the touchdown throw that
Yeah.
AJ Brown caught, that was
Yep.
an underthrown ball where AJ
Yep.
slowed up, fended off the defender perfectly,
Yep.
and let it drop in the basket. That was a great play by AJ Brown. You're right; he does make up for a lot of mistakes, but he's just that good.
And Devontae runs those great routes as usual. If you look at the passing game, they really did have high explosion plays, but not a lot of continuity. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't consistently moving the chains where you had like really long sustained drives.
Yeah,
They didn't have long, and they would get away from Barkley, which
why are they allergic to that, Sills? Why
I
do
don't know why they're
they
doing
live and die on the big play?
absolutely. They live and at the expense of doing what they do best, running the football too. I mean, they just, like I said, from the middle of the second to the middle of the third, it almost seemed like they just completely got away from Saquon Barkley in the game. I mean, how many carries did he end up
I mean,
with?
he had
in that game?
18 carries.
18, but I remember that I think he had 3 in the second half. Does that sound right? 3 or 4 in the second half that he had?
Yeah, I don't have it right in front of me.
Yes,
So,
like-
I mean, look, they had their fair share of carries. Jaylen Herz had 14 carries, Saquon 18, Kenny Gainwell had 3. So
Look at this here. So check it out here. Look at this. Between the two guys, you had 32 carries between Barkley and Hertz.
yeah, and then 3 for
80
Gainwell.
yards.
He had 35 carries. 1 for
Yeah.
Dotson. It was 36 carry ball game.
I mean, you're 14 carries for your quarterback. Think about that.
That's a
14
lot.
carries for your quarterback, okay? How about this? This guy almost had as many carries as he had completions in the football game today. So that is, again, but when he plays like that, no turnovers, 60 yards rushing or whatever it was, 30 yards rushing, 260 yards passing. When he plays like that and he's at 300 yards, Xander, that's what I want to see out of him, because that's who he is. If that guy was going to throw the ball 37 times, I told you guys were losing. He threw the ball 25 times. Remember I told you how many times do you think he was going to throw the ball? I said if they throw the ball 25 times, they'll win.
Yep, that was your number, right on the number, 25 times. And he started off 0 for 5. So he did have a good game. I mean, look, the 0 for 5 was ugly. Everybody was freaking out
That's
about the
rushed out of the bye, possibly. That's
He went
okay.
16 to 20 after that. No turnovers, 2 touchdowns. I was good with Jaylen Herz today. I had no issue. I mean, we'll watch some of the tape. I think he might have had a couple issues seeing the field. It's clear he does rely on those receivers, boy. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing when you have guys as good as
I
AJ
think
Brown.
Hurts are winning. I think those guys are going to continue to get their numbers, but will it be winning football?
Right, that's a good
Okay,
question.
just because, last year all those guys last year you had 2 guys over 2,600 yards in receiving yards, and you finished the season 1-7. I mean, it really didn't matter because it wasn't winning football. That's Xander. Look at it again here today. You had a lot of numbers, but do you think he played winning football?
Who,
Okay.
Jaylen Herz?
No, the team. Did it play winning football today offensively? Is that
Winning football versus the Browns, but versus a playoff team, that's not winning football.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about beating a shitty Browns. I'm talking about being a contending football team. Like when you watch a dominant football team play and you watch a team like, say, the Ravens play when they're playing at their high level, or you're watching Kansas City, or you're watching – dude, the Packers today were insane. When you're watching a high-profile, prolific offense, the Eagles aren't a high prolific offense right now.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Winning by 4 points over the Browns. I don't know. Now look, again, let's see if they springboard this. Who do they got on the other side of this? The Giants? Okay. I mean, let's see how they springboard into this here with that game against the Giants.
By the way, Nick just answered the question on the his back and forth with the fans, straddles the fence, of course, says he was just excited to get a win, and credits the fans for creating some false starts today for the Browns. I appreciate the Lynx support. So Sirianni riding the fence. That was a stupid thing to do. He's got his kids up there at the press conference as well, so because I'm sure he wanted to take some of the heat off of himself.
Man, my God almighty, man. He is such a clown. That's a clown show, dude. You bring your family up there. He lost his poise once again on the sideline. I'm going to tell you again, man. I don't know how anybody defends that behavior on the sideline. And no wonder Jaylen Herz has a problem with it. You know why? This guy's been on the sideline with Doug Peterson. He's been on the sideline with Nick Saban. And he's been on the sideline with Lincoln Riley. Those guys don't freaking act like that.
No, they don't.
Bro, honest to God, this guy acts like your high school coach at your famed school doesn't act like that on the sidelines. That's so unbecoming of the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's a complete jackass.
You know what? And I'll make a statement here. I think he overplayed his hand. Philly's not going to go for that shit.
No way.
This is a different type of fan base. This is a different town. It's one thing to do it to the Kansas City crowd. It's a whole nother ballgame to sit there and do it to the Eagles crowd. I don't give a shit how excited you were. You're the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. You're not the head coach of the Nick Siriannis. You know? And I think the fans are going to have a problem with that. We'll see how that plays out.
By the way, they're killing him right now on social media.
Yeah. And they're going to continue to. And you know what? It's fair.
Everyone across the country is killing him and not talking about getting the win and running your team to a 3-2. This is the outside noise that I talk about, Xander, with your organization. That is not needed. The Fortnite stuff, the podcasting, the coach screaming look at it all add up. You can't defend. By the way, some media people will blow it off that as just Nick being Nick. Well, you can't, because he gets in the way of the team's success, because I don't want to talk about that shit, Xander. If you're a player in the locker room right now after that game, don't you want to talk about, how about this? If you're Josh Sweat, you haven't played the greatest game so far this year, but you had a really good one today. Don't you want to talk about that instead of talking about your coach screaming at the Eagle fans?
Yeah, it's a joke. I mean, that's just a stupid move there. But you know what? You know what else it is? It's a selfish move.
It is.
So, it is. It's a totally selfish move for a guy whose job is based on being selfless as the head coach of a team, as a leader of men. And I thought that was really stupid. So
even John Clark from NBC in Philadelphia is like, what in the world is this? Yeah. I mean, everybody right here, Nick Sirianni chirping at fans after Eagles game. Look, and he's pointing to his ears going like this, the Eagle fans. How come what are you doing? What's going on? I don't hear it now. Like, are you insane? Are you insane? You got to win. Go into the locker room. You're going to defend your team against the Eagle fans? The only people that are true Eagles are the fans.
Like I said, he's not the coach of the Nick Siriannis. He's the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Fucking act like it, Nick. That was a